All right. What book are we reading again?
I don't know. It's been a while. We've been trapped in this mountain retreat. You know, to be honest, I've not really been paying attention to the book. I've just kind of been going down into the boiler room every night and just leafing through the scrapbook down there, and I'm just reading these sordid tales of the past of this mountain retreat, and I don't know, some strange ideas are forming.
The Little School. That's what it was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I'm starting to kind of turn on Gary personally. I didn't think I would at this point, but yeah, he's kind of full of it, and I think he's kind of pro-establishment at this point. So I'm kind of siding with the principal here.
Well, there's a lot to get into with this story. I mean, I think you could see a lot of like this sort of tragic pathos of the principal, but you have to also sort of reckon with the fact that he has a certain, a certain arrogance, a certain, it's just that his being thwarted in life is causing him to kick down. Obviously, in ways that are not the way he should.
Welcome back to The Shining. My name is Dusty.
And my name is Failed Rifferson.
Oh.
No, not your failed riff. I just failed during the riff.
It's okay.
I did not successfully yes and.
It's okay, F.
I yes-ummed.
So, episode 3, part 4. Things are heating up a lot, and this was the
and also cooling
part.
Down.
Yes, that too. Shortest part so far. Only I think my copy of the book. I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 128 pages. I want to say.
Yeah, my copy was something like that. I didn't keep an exact page count, but I was just it did go faster than any other part since part 1 for me anyway.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot to take in with this one, especially with Jack's character arc. Boy, man, is there a better word to describe Jack in this part than disappointing?
Yeah. I mean, this is a big moment for the development of Jack. I don't know, or is it development or a regression of sorts? A regression as a human, but perhaps development as a character.
This is calling what Jack goes through this part a regression would be a compliment. Well, I feel like we went from this is the part where the turn has taken from tragic protagonist. I'm not going to say hero because he was never the hero. He's just the protagonist right now. I think this is where Jack took the turn from tragic protagonist to unsympathetic villain.
It definitely feels like he was the primary focus on this chapter or on this part of the book. I would be curious, based on the way things are developing in the plot, if he will kind of take a back seat in this latter part of the book and become more of a secondary character, whereas Danny becomes the nominal protagonist.
Yeah, I feel like to give a little bit of an analogy here, I feel like Jack Torrance has just hit his equivalent of cutting off Mace Windu's hand, and now we are about to watch Order 66 be initiated.
Yeah, that is kind of the vibe. I'm feeling right now. It's I don't know. It's one of those things. Obviously, I mean, even setting aside the fact that this book is, even if it's not the contours of the book exactly, but the contours of the story broadly are widely known because The Shining was such a huge movie, and the book actually was quite successful as well. But so the contours of the story are probably pretty well known to most people. But nevertheless, I think King does a good job of making it still impactful, and still like you're reading along, and there's a part of you that hopes that it's not going to turn out the way it very clearly looks like it's going to turn out, and then things just sort of continue to degenerate, and you're like, oh no, this is not. Oh no.
Yeah. So to no longer beat around the bush here. So we're starting this part post Danny in 217 being strangled by the dead tub lady. Wendy and Jack have both dozed off, and Jack has a nightmare that gives us a little backstory about his father. So, I think before this, we'd gotten a little bit of info about his father. Stuff like Jack loved him despite him being abusive, and all of his siblings hated him because of it and whatnot. So, now we get a little more meat into it. We get to see like what it was that Jack kind of clung to with his father, and shocker here, a little bit of alcohol involved into the why, on how his dad would come home. So Jack would be waiting for his father to come home from a bar, and when he would come home, he would pick him up, and Jack would just smell all the booze on him, and then they would play a little game called Elevator, where he would just lift him up and maybe toss him up in the air. I feel like it kind of did or didn't involve that sometimes, but then if he was just really drunk, he would just toss him behind him. Just, oops, I forgot that I'm supposed to be holding you, and just throw him backwards, and he'd slam into the ground in the hallway behind him. You know, just totally normal father-son interactions.
Yeah, it's, and another, it just, I don't know. I just found that the parallel, and obviously this is something that King is doing, is he's establishing this idea about the cycle of abuse, by giving this information about Jack and his father. So it's just, but it's interesting to see the parallels already, like the alcoholism, with Jack himself as the child, and Danny, both, very loving and having very warm feelings for their father, but and that image of the child waiting for their father to come home, just being kind of woven through the characterization of Jack as a child, and also Danny. I think it's an interesting idea, and I wouldn't say it's particularly subtle, but I think it is a well done sort of way to illustrate that concept.
Yeah. Kind of shows that there's a cycle, and it's making me wonder if Danny will find himself in a similar position when he becomes a father.
Well, maybe we'll find out one day.
I don't know. I haven't read Doctor Sleep, so I don't know. So, and then we also get the story of the major incident between his mom and dad. So he has this cane, this gold-studded cane at the top, and he had a bunch of fits where he would beat Jack's mom, but this one was particularly bad. He was in some drunken sleeping stupor at the dinner table, and when he kind of woke up from it, he just immediately was deeply offended by something that Jack's mom did. Don't think it was anything. I think it was I imagine it's a similar situation where it's like, the stories that that people on the internet tell that are probably not true, of, oh yeah, my girlfriend had a dream I cheated on her and now she's giving me the cold shoulder all day. Like something equivalent like that. Like Jack's dad had a dream that, I don't know, I guess his wife slandered him in some way, so he wakes up and immediately just clobbers her 7 times with his cane. And I am
Weren't they at the dinner table?
Yes,
because there was like the big deal about like her the image of her being smacked in the head and then her glasses going flying and landing in the mashed potatoes.
Yeah. So he hits her 7 times. And I'm genuinely amazed she didn't get brain damage from this. I thought she was gonna just become brain dead or something. But no, she goes to the hospital. He makes up a lie. Oh, she fell down the stairs, and nobody believes. No one believes it. But what can you do? And then she, of course, because she is a victim in this extremely abusive household, and because she was raised with the Christian belief that it doesn't matter what happens, it is your Christian duty to keep your marriage intact. Which, can we talk? I don't even think that's specifically a religious thing. That's just something that they used religion as an excuse for. At least that's how I feel about it. Like, I don't think that there is any real, like, actual realistic, hey, my religion says I should stay in this relationship even though I'm getting beaten and abused and all this. Like, I would like to think that good Christians would look at that and be like, yeah, no, this woman needs help.
Different religions and different sects within Christianity probably they feel differently about that. Certainly in that sort of time and place, this sort of a early mid 20th century, heavily Catholic area, very traditionalist. There's a good chance that they're not really going to give you that. They're going to look very negatively on divorce, even in that context. Obviously, heinous though it is, it's just there are certain and obviously not. I don't mean to say that everybody, even at that time period or of that religion, agrees with that, but it was a pretty widely held belief for. Excuse me. It was a widely held belief for many sects of Christianity. Even some a little bit today will get apologetic about that kind of thing.
Yeah, which I do think is a bastardization of the ideas of being a good Christian. Because, like I said, I don't think any actual good Christian would look at that situation and be like, yeah, just tough it out, because that's what God wants you to do. I don't believe for a second that's how things would actually play out in a healthy religious community. But that, I think, is I think it's a statement more so on, like, how society kind of warps things. I'm just sitting here, like, being an apologist towards Christian beliefs. I think it's more so a societal thing that they just hid behind the idea of religion to try and push this subjugation of women. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. You see it the same thing today with the LGBT community. They're hiding behind this idea of religion to try and, like, be against LGBT people, and it's bullshit. That's not accurate. That's not how it's just, it's a paper tiger defense. And you're just saying, oh, well, this book says this, even though, I'm not going to get into the whole thing about that, but I think it's a similar kind of vein with how women were seen back then, and they were using religion as a tool to keep the woman down in that situation. So,
yeah, it was, I don't know, that portion of the book was quite a difficult read. It obviously felt just tremendously bad for Jack's mother in that moment.
So yeah, we get a little more about his home life after that. His mother stayed with his father until his father ended up dying of a stroke. The kids left because they were just tired of this just abusive family, and Jack eventually got out in his own way as well. So to kind of wrap up this kind of dream state that he has, he starts hearing his father talk to him, and his father is like, hey, your wife and son are an albatross around your neck. Kill them. Just kill them. You're going to be better. Like, our artist deserves to be suffering. Kill your wife. Kill your son. kill your family, just that whole spiel. And he rejects it, and it's coming. His father's voice is coming out of the CB radio, and so he breaks the radio in anger and rejection of these claims, and that wakes him up. That wakes Wendy up because he shouted out loud as well. And it turns out he was he down in the boiler room or just down on the first floor looking through? Because he was looking through like receipts when he ended up falling asleep.
I think that the CB radio is like in one of the offices. Like, isn't it in Ullman's office?
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, like where he was when he was looking at the receipts, because he's trying to find any information he can to help his potential book about the Overlook. And then when he wakes up, he's in the office with the CB radio. So he sleepwalked to it, and then Wendy comes.
Hold on, there's one other important aspect of the Jack father backstory that we need to hit before we move on.
Okay.
And it's some extremely important foreshadowing, which is Jack's father. When he was beating his mother, he uses the phrase, "I guess you'll take your medicine now," which is rather dark foreshadowing given the context of what Danny's hallucinations have manifested.
Yeah. So his screaming, it wakes him up as he smashes the radio. It wakes Wendy up, and Wendy rushes down to see what the ruckus is. Passes right by Danny, who is standing at the top of the stairs, completely catatonic with bruises on his neck. She runs down to Jack. It's like, "Oh no, what's going on?" And he's just like, "I had a horrible dream." He breaks down and starts crying. He's like, "My father, I can't believe it. Oh, so terrible. And she's like, "It's okay, it's okay." And then they're both just like, "Where's Danny?" And Wendy immediately gets like super suspicious and accusatory towards Jack, and is thinking about how he broke Danny's arm, which I'm a level with you here. Completely unfair on Wendy's part. Like, completely unfair for her to just immediately, "Where's Danny?" I bet you did something to him. And then this is gonna loop back around here in a second to where they go looking for Danny, and they stop and see him at the top of the stairs with the bruises on his neck and him just staring off blankly. And they rush to get him, and Wendy's first thought is, "You did this to him." Which, I mean, to be fair, as far as she's aware, the three of them are the only ones in the hotel. And that is true from a corporeal standpoint. Well, maybe not even a corporeal standpoint. From an actual living standpoint, they are the only living beings inside the hotel at this point in time. So, like, yeah, if she knows that she didn't do it, and she knows that someone did it to him, then yes, the next logical step is that Jack did it. Sure. But I feel like and granted, I understand her not taking a step back and thinking logically, because this is a very stressful, highly emotional situation, so her brain just immediately goes to the knee-jerk reaction. Understandable.
I don't know. I think in her case it is, I mean, as far as she knows, Jack is the only other person there. I think it's probably it's especially given his history with Danny. I don't really blame her for going there immediately. Like, there's no real other at least to the point in the story where it's at. There's no other potential explanation that is feasible for her to intuit in that moment.
Yeah, and like I said, it was an emotional response, and she did not have the means to actually react logically to it. So it's not her fault.
I think honestly, even like that's the at that point the most logical reason. Also, yeah. It's just because she can't have accounted for what the actual truth was, because it's just something that is so far out of the norm of the human experience that it just, in that moment, you wouldn't think that either.
Yeah, like I said, I'm probably being a little more biased to the truth because I know what happened, so maybe I should give her like a little more benefit of the doubt. Like not that I'm saying you should not have immediately accused Jack. You should have sat there, looked at it, and been like, well, let's break this down. Like that's not what I'm saying, but yeah, I feel like it is a statement toward her actual subconscious opinion of Jack, that's her immediate response more than anything else. Like she truly does not trust him with Danny at all, and she resents him deeply and in a completely unfixable way, which granted it's not entirely unjustified, especially with what we know about Jack. So I get it, but like I said, I think this is more a statement to her actual subconscious feelings towards Jack, that she may outwardly and even inwardly love him, but she also resents him, fears him, and is appalled by him, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this does show a great deal about where she's at as a character.
Yeah, so she locks her and Danny in their bedroom because she's like, "Don't you ever touch him again." And Jack is just in utter disbelief because he thinks there's absolutely no way I could have done this, and he pounds the floor and screams no, and in a bit of emotional rage and just, I guess, desperation, after hovering outside the door for a while, he goes into the bar, the completely empty bar, and he has another instance where he sees alcohol and then blinks and it's gone, but then he feels like he could just, like, it's kind of like a almost in a periphery or like a shadowy kind of thing where he can see a full shelf of alcohol. He can smell the alcohol and it smells fresh. He feels like there's people behind him, and we get another situation kind of like when he was out doing the, like, cutting the hedges, where he's like talking to himself. He's entertaining no one in particular, and this time it's Lloyd, the imaginary barman, who I love how King does Lloyd, because Lloyd doesn't exist. He's not some Overlook creation that's there to, like, mess with Jack. It is Jack just imagining this person there. There's no dialogue from Lloyd. There's, like, no actual semblance to suggest that Lloyd is in any way, shape, or form even partially a possible Overlook thing. It is just Jack is speaking to nobody, and he just imagines Lloyd's reactions, and it's done in Lloyd tends to agree. Lloyd thinks that's okay. You know, it's things like that where it's just he's explaining the actions of Lloyd instead of having Lloyd be an actual character. And I think that's fantastic. That's a great use of this scene to show the kind of mania that is building inside of Jack.
Yeah. I think I agree. He's having a true mental breakdown in this moment.
Yeah. So he orders 20 margs. He's like, "It's Dollarita Friday. Line them up, Lloyd. 20 margs." He's sitting there acting like he's downing them and throwing them back and having them crash on the floor. And he has this is the Overlook doing this part here, I think. He has this feeling of being watched by an entire, like, completely packed bar, like full on everybody in every booth, just staring at him and laughing and kind of like making comments about him under their breath, just really feeling like he's the center of attention, and he's just like this clown that's just down in alcohol, fist over fist, and he keeps turning around and seeing that there's nobody there, and he's like shouting, "Leave me alone," and there's nothing there, but he feels it like completely, like they are there, they are watching him, and that is the hotel. Lloyd is not. Lloyd is 100% Jack, but the bystanders watching him are the hotel. And it's just like with there was a similar thing when this is coming up in a little bit, actually. I'll wait on that. This is coming up when he goes up to the room. So yeah, and he starts singing, and that's when Wendy meanwhile is in the room, and she's thinking to herself, I know that Jack did this while he was asleep, and I know he would not do this when he was awake, so I have to trust that awake Jack is sane Jack, and I need to make sure that awake Jack helps Danny and I get out of this situation, gets down to Sidewinder, and then after that, I don't know. We'll see. So that's when she leaves to try and come back and find Jack, and she hears him singing, and it's like, what's going on? And about this time is when Danny, or no, I'm sorry, they have a little bit of an exchange that's kind of important, to where he's basically saying he didn't do it, and she's, I don't know, she's not like completely believing him yet, and she's basically saying like it doesn't matter, and he's like, it is important, it does matter. And this is when Danny wakes up, and he runs to Jack and shouts, "It was her, it was her." And it's like, oh man, no context whatsoever. That is just, I imagine, I know Jack felt a little bit of delicious irony in that, and he even thinks to himself, there's no way that he's talking about Wendy. As much as I would love that, there's no way she would ever do that. But he's just like, what was that now? Just kind of in his little air of his little victory, like, oh, yeah, what was that, Wendy? You want to try that again?
Yeah, it's pretty clear at this point. Obviously, there's been there's evidence that there's already been a fatal rupture, and that was the incident with Danny's arm. But like this whole part where they're especially with Jack in this moment where he's like taking this moment and trying to like score points and all that, it's pretty clear that in this moment their relationship is really and truly dead. Like there is no trust is totally broken down. They're just trying to score points. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, what the Overlook is doing is it's just putting a spotlight on the true foundational fractures in their relationship, and it's like, yeah, it's breaking them open even more, but I think it's only expediting it. I think that their relationship was dead when he broke Danny's arm, and they've just been kind of going through the motions, and it's like she was thinking when they were getting there that it doesn't matter what either of them do, they're stuck together. There's nothing that either of them can do to each other that will ruin the relationship. It basically have to be some external force, and I think that external force is the Overlook, and all it's doing is just emphasizing what's already there.
Yeah, that I agree with that.
So yeah, they're now in the kitchen. They're talking about Dan. They're trying to get Danny to explain what happened, and he actually does explain what happens fully, more or less. Yeah. He actually tells them everything in this situation. And Wendy is like, honestly, she's super receptive to it. Like she does not doubt him for a second. Which, you know what? Good on Wendy. Just, great mother there. Meanwhile, Jack he's like, okay, well, I gotta go up there. I gotta see this for myself. And Wendy's sitting there thinking that there might actually be an intruder. She's receptive to it, but she thinks it's an actual person, not a ghost. And Jack's like, I gotta go up there and see for myself. And she's like, no. What if that person's still up there? Ooh. He's like, I gotta do this. I'm gonna do this. So he goes up, and he goes to 217, and he sees that the door's ajar and the key is still in there. And man, you gotta love a good old Jack Torrance, where his first thought in that situation, he's still worried about Danny, but he's still just like, but he disobeyed me. That kid disobeyed me. And it's like, I mean, sure. Yes, you told Danny not to take the passkey. You told Danny not to explore any of the rooms, and he disobeyed you and explored 217. Yes. Is it really worth having that thought? No. You found your child in a catatonic state with bruises on his neck, and he's claiming that somebody was choking him out, and when you see the door, your first thought is about the punishment your child deserves. What?
Yeah, Jack comes off in an incredibly petty manner here in this part of the book.
This is like the least petty he is in the entire section too. This is the most good Jack is in this entire section. This is his peak. To really put some perspective on his character.
Yeah. You weren't kidding when you're saying this is with the inverse of a redemption arc.
Yeah. So he goes in there. He walks in, looks in the bathroom, opens the curtain. There's nothing there. It's bone dry. The only thing that's kind of weird is that there's a bath mat on the floor. But I hate to say this, I'm kind of with Jack on this point that that's not really indicative of anything other than potentially a maid just didn't do it. Like, a bath mat on the floor it's nothing. It's completely inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
But then as he's leaving, is it he hears something or the door shuts behind him?
Isn't it? I think it was the door shutting behind him.
Yeah, so he goes back into the bathroom, and now the curtain is drawn again. And he didn't draw it back closed when he left. But then he starts smelling pink soap. And it's like really there. It's super fresh. It's in his nose. Wasn't there before. It's absolutely there. And he feels like he can see the outline, the silhouette of something in the bathtub. And he's just like, nope. And he heads back towards the door. The door to the room is closed at this point, and he's sitting there thinking, oh god, it's going to be locked, just like Danny. But he actually opens it, and it's there, and he slams the door shut, and he swears that he heard, as he's like leaving, wet squelching, and then hurried footsteps towards the door. And he's like, he locks the door, gets to the opposite wall, and just shuts his eyes. And he starts hearing the doorknob rattling. And he's like, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And he just keeps his eyes clamped shut until the noise fades. And then he's just like, well, I'm hallucinating. There's no way that was actually a real thing. And as he's heading back, he sees that the fire hose is in a different spot than he remembers it being when he came up. But that's not important, I guess, to him. He's just like, weird stuff.
There's humans have an astounding ability to rationalize things.
Yeah. Which, I mean, in his situation, I would be really trying to rationalize it as well. But it would be so much harder to do with the fact that Danny just experienced that. I don't think I could 100%. I could try. I would be trying my absolute hardest to play it off as, oh, well, he said that, so that's what I was expecting, and that's the hallucination I had because of that. But it would be so much harder than if it was just an isolated incident, like the topiary was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the squelch, the squelching and the running, that would be tough for me. I don't think I could rationalize that one. But like the hallway with the fire extinguisher and it's going the other way, I would probably be like, I don't know. I guess I thought it was the other way, but yeah. there's no possible way you can rationalize the other.
Yeah, and I know it's more than just rationality in play here, but if it was me and I was in that situation, I heard the footsteps and the door rattling and all that, my very first thought would be like, all right, so we're leaving right now. I don't care about our stuff. We're just gonna bundle up enough to get warm. We're leaving, and there is a way for them to leave, as we're about to find out. So yeah, he goes back, and he's just like, "Yep, nothing there. That's it."
Which is just, this is so appalling. This moment when he's just like, "Oh, there's nothing in there." It's just so galling, to just to lie to them about that extreme the if not extreme danger, extreme weirdness.
Yeah.
It just it just totally this specific moment I almost don't even understand. Like generally Jack's actions can be understood as, being based in some way about his character. I fully don't understand why he makes the decision to lie about room 217 in this moment.
Yeah. It's the selfishness. He's being really selfish, and he's going to continue to do so. And like honestly, I think it gets even worse too with his actions about the room in particular. When they let Danny sleep in their room, and him and Wendy are talking about it, and he's like, "I'm of two minds about this. Either it's either it's like stigmata, which is just such a ridiculous thing to say, and he even acknowledges that as well. But what a ridiculous suggestion. Or the kid did it to himself, which is just even more appalling. Like, oh yeah, I know, especially knowing what he knows. The gall to suggest that Danny did that to himself is just psychotic.
Yeah.
And
yeah, go ahead.
And like, I know we know because we're the readers, but even still, like, Jack should know better at this point.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't make any sense to me because I just can't. I try not to view characters in this light. I try to let characters be their own thing. I try to not be like, I wouldn't do that, so it's a plot hole, that kind of guy. But it's just like, it just boggles my mind, this decision of Jack's. It's just like, I just can't account for that kind of like, just pig-headedness or selfishness is just unbelievable. I had to set the book down after that chapter. Just take a break for. I think I didn't read until the next day. I was just viscerally annoyed.
Yeah, everything Jack is doing in this part is because he wants to stay, because he feels he's owed it. He is entitled to what this job will bring him in. He wants that book. He wants the Overlook book. He's being fueled by that, and it's completely blinding him. And he's getting a couple of moments of clarity, but then just immediately, just intentionally closing his eyes and being like, la 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 la, Overlook book, la 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 la, and it's so frustrating to read.
Yeah.
So Wendy, he kind of let slip on accident that there's a snowmobile. And Wendy's like, oh, we need to take the snowmobile and go to Sidewinder tomorrow. That has to be what we do. And he's so upset at himself for giving her that possibility. He's pissed at her, and he's thinking, I should, I would love to shut that fucking mouth of hers. They're just being like really aggressive toward her in his mind, which is just not good.
And also just demeaning. Like, he's mocking her in this moment. He's saying crazy things like, "Oh, so I'm gonna be Superman and just fly him down," It's just before that, and just saying that she's. There was this really bizarre thing where he's talking about sociologists, and he's like, "You're not internalizing the truths or whatever." It's just like, dude, just shut up. You're being an enormous. Even if there was some validity to what he's saying, there isn't. But even I'm just saying, like, just the way, just even to treat or to talk in that way is just, it's just, you're just listening to him, and you just grow to hate him in this portion of the book. I know I don't mean to keep banging that drum here, but it's just appalling the way he is acting.
I mean, that is the theme of this section, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this, believe it or not, it gets worse from here. It only keeps going down. Believe me, this is a slide. This is not a roller coaster. This is a slide. Just straight down. Maybe it spirals a little bit, but it's still going down. There is no up here. There's not even a plateau. It's just terrible. Um, Phenomenal writing though. Great job, Stephen King. Love it. So the next day he goes to the shed to try and figure out the snowmobile, and he's just you got to bring back the wasp imagery. It's yellow and black, and he feels like, just like the wasp, this snowmobile is the sting on his life that is making his everything go negative for Jack Torrance, how he's still the victim, and like, these damn wife and kids all trying to be all like, oh, we gotta do what's best for us, and he's like, nah, what's best for me? Why is no one thinking about what's best for me? And granted, he does kind of like have, like I said, he has moments of clarity here. He does have that where he's just like, what am I saying? Wendy's 100% right. Danny is the only thing that matters. Danny needs to get out of here. This is not safe for him. Yes, we need to go. And he has that, and that's what kind of gets him through actually fixing the snowmobile, because it's missing spark plugs and a battery, and he finds the spark plugs and puts them in, and he's like, yeah, I gotta do that. This is the right thing to do, because Danny is the most important thing. But then he's like, oh no, can't find the battery. Well, shucks. Gave it a good try, Wendy. Oops. But then as he's turning to leave, he sees that the stool that he had grabbed earlier was actually on top of a box labeled for the battery. He's all frustrated about that, and he's like, why,
I can't believe I
universe?
saw the battery.
I can't just lie about this at this point. I gotta be honest here. And he's just like, screw you, universe, for intentionally placing this battery here. And I don't even think this is something we can say that the Overlook did, because why would the Overlook be like, here is the key to your escape, right here, look, there it is, leave. Like, no, it's just, that's where it was. And he's like, damn it. So he puts it together, and then he has the end of clarity, so to say. And he's like, you know what? No. This is, everybody just wants to bring me down. Everybody wants to just tear me up and just treat me like I'm trash and I don't deserve any good things. But you know what? I deserve the best things, because I'm Jack Torrance and I'm the best. So he just sabotages the snowmobile completely. It's called, like, what's it called? The Magneto?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I'm assuming that's something that connects to the battery.
I think that is the battery.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Pretty sure it was the battery that he sabotaged.
Yeah, like he just like rips something out called the Magneto, and he just hucks it out into the wilderness, and the Overlook puts a little wind under it and carries it further than it was supposed to, and it puffs into the snow, and he's like, just doing the Lord's work. And to just add salt to the wound, he goes out in a great mood and has a snowball fight with Danny. And I'm just like, man. Asshole. Just the worst.
Yeah, it just can you, I don't know. I just can't even, the selfishness it would take for you to purposefully strand your family there. It just, wow.
I mean, like,
gotta give Stephen King this. He writes an extremely hateable villain here, and just this incredibly, petulant, increasingly petulant man-child. Just totally, he's just so reprehensible in this section.
Yeah. And, like, at what point could it have just been, like, he has the conversation with Wendy, like, hey, clearly it's not safe here for the two of you. How about I just take you back to Sidewinder? Here's the money I have. Like, I don't know, figure it out. And then I'll just go back to the Overlook, which is something that, like, it is something that Wendy essentially has as the plan now, because she's like, well, since the CB's broken, the Rangers will come and check on us because they won't be able to get any progress reports. And then when that happens, Danny and I will go with them, and Jack can stay and ride out the winter, whatever. Which, I don't see why they couldn't have still done that if that was the plan anyways now. Why they couldn't have just done that with the snowmobile, and Jack could have just been like, I'm going to go and finish my play and be a sleuth on the Overlook and try and write this super expose novel. I mean, we could have had Danny and Wendy and Jack all winning this situation, which, granted, I think winning for Jack in the end would have led to him probably killing himself if he stayed there alone, realistically, because I'm sure the Overlook would eventually get to him in some way. But still, like, that would probably have been the best option at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, woo, Jackson ass. And so now, I don't know why there is any figment of positivity in... Oh, let me back up real quick, actually, because I was about to go into a thing, but I realized I can talk about... I can use this as an even greater point. Why there's any sort of positivity in Wendy and Jack's relationship. So when they put Danny to bed after the incident in 217, and before they talk about the snowmobile, and when Jack is sitting there trying to... I can't believe this. When he's telling her that he's like, it's either the stigmata or he did it to himself, he is fondling her boobs and undressing her while he's doing this. And they end up having sex. Like, she gets into the... She's getting aroused by him touching her and talking about their son being self-inflicting wounds on him. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. That was a little bit of a strange part there.
Yeah, I can't believe not like an hour or so prior she was sitting there saying, how dare you lay your hands on my son, never touch him again. And now she's like, take me, gentlemen, sir, take me. And tell me about my son being a schizophrenic. Do it to me. It's just so weird. Like, I don't know what hold he has on Wendy to make her just succumb to him like that. But, man, that is such a messed up relationship.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah. So, now they're up having sex again. And Danny is aware of it. And he's like, I'm going to go play. But the sun is facing this way, and that's where I usually play. And I don't want to sit in the shadow of the Overlook, which is some great literary metaphorical writing there. Whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's a fun little play on, like, sitting in the shadow of the Overlook and, like, what that means literally and metaphorically. I don't know. I think that was a fun little bit. So he's like, I'm going to go down to the playground. You know, the one that's right next to the hedge animals that attacked my father, which, granted, he does not know about that. But
what he does know is that Dick Halloran has warned him, don't go near the hedge animals.
Which, I mean, to be fair, the playground is, like, near them, but not, like, near them. They're in the same general vicinity, but they're not, like, they're, like, kind of next to each other, but, like, apart. I don't know. That's at least how I understand it. But he's gotten really good with walking with snowshoes, so he goes down, and he's just kind of walking around the playground. And okay, let me see if I understand this correctly. So there's like essentially a nature-formed igloo. Like there's...
I don't think that's correct.
So like he has to dig a hole into the concrete circle, and then goes into the snow down to this like opening.
Right.
So like, did he... I must have just kind of skimmed this on accident, but like, is it just a snowbank that he just goes into, or is it there's like a piece of equipment that's completely covered in snow and he has to dig a hole to get inside of it? Because all it refers to is the concrete circle.
Well, I think the cement rings are just... They're... How to put this? It's like... You know how they have like... This is how I was picturing it. You know how in like dog parks there can be like rings that the dog runs through, essentially?
Oh, like a cylinder?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was picturing here.
Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, I was thinking like when it said ring, like it was like a ring on the ground, not like a cylindrical tube.
Yeah, I think to me that's how I was envisioning it during this point.
That makes more sense than what I was thinking. But all the same, he digs down into it, and here's another situation of Danny thinking, man, it would suck if this happened, and then it happens. Because that's how the Overlook works. And he's sitting there thinking, man, it'd suck if there was something in here walking along with me and trying to come after me. And then as he's like, I should probably leave now because that's kind of scary. And then he's trying to climb up, and he's like, man, it would suck if the snow came down and trapped me in here. And then the snow comes down and traps him in there. And then he starts hearing some movement on the leaves behind him, which is terrifying. So he's like, digging furiously to get out. He finally makes it out, and he's like he has to go around the long way to get back up the snowbank that he went down to get to the playground. But oh, what's this? As he's moving, he hears a snow kind of sloughing off of something, and he turns around, and the dog is completely uncovered in the snow, and it's kind of looking at him. And he keeps going, and he hears it again, and he turns, and all the lions are uncovered, and they're actually closer to him. And so now we get part 2, but this time it's Danny being chased by the animals, the hedge animals, and oh boy, this one's so much more terrifying.
Yeah, especially with the context of like, imagining this poor child, in his snowshoes, just trying to get away. Just this is some great like a very suspenseful moment that King is writing here.
Yeah, and it's a great little chase that he's being chased by all 3 lions. The dog is moving around to like kind of cut off his flank, and he's having to waddle up in these snowshoes, and he falls once, and he knows that if he falls again, it's over because they're really closing the gap on him. At one point he looks around, and it's like 5 feet behind him, and you can see it's like little hedge mouth opening to get ready to pounce. And it's such a great scene. It's so well written. It's super tense. The pacing is perfect, and he ends up just bursting out in a run at the very end, and he's trying to scrabble up the porch, and he feels something slash open the fabric of his pants and his sock on his ankle, and he's like I think he's falling on his face because it says like his nose was bleeding or something. And Wendy and Jack come out. They're like, what's going on? And he's got a little bit of a scratch on the back of his ankle, and he tells them what happens. He leaves out the bit inside of the cement ring. He leaves that out, but he explains that the animals were chasing him. Jack is like not reacting the way you think he would, either as like, the reader who knows what Jack went through, or even as just like Wendy, who should be expecting him to be a little more like he was the other night with 217 about it. He's just super kind of blasé about it, just like, hey Danny, come here. He just really, once again, this is just a slide. There's no getting off this collapse here of character development.
Yeah, he's this has become a bit of a buzzword on the internet over the last few years, but he is literally gaslighting Danny here.
Yeah. And what makes this even worse, and what makes this worse, in my opinion, than saying everything's fine in 217, saying maybe Danny did it to himself, what makes it even worse than that is he knows exactly what Danny just went through because he went through it himself first. And the fact that Danny has now gone through it has to solidify in his mind that all of this is real. He cannot hide from this anymore. So what does he do? He pulls Danny over, points at the mounds of snow where the animals are covered, and he's like, what do you see? You see lumps of snow, huh? And like Wendy's getting pissed at him, like, don't cross-examine him, what are you doing? And then like Danny's like, no, it's real. But then his shine activates at this point, and he's staring at Jack, and he's like, you know what happened. You know what happened because it happened to you. Like basically saying, I know what you know. And Jack slaps him. Asshole.
Yeah. Just just totally. And I think, I feel like this moment, there's been a lot of moments, and I'm really sorry to the listeners, but it is just it's just a total collapse of his character. But it feels like this at this point, this is Anakin cutting off Mace Windu's hand, essentially.
Yeah. What a good analogy.
It's just in this moment, he's crossed this line that there is just no coming back. He's trying to gaslight Danny. He's leaving his family, that he knows he's leaving his family in a situation of great danger. He's doing it for like these incredibly selfish and petty reasons, like a level of pettiness that if you have not read the book and you're just reading and you're exposed to his thoughts, you're just like, I can't even believe this guy. It's just bewildering. Just a bewilderingly poor father in this moment. The sheer revulsion that I felt for him in that moment. I could not believe that.
Yeah, it's insanely disgusting, and it's, like I said, we're going from tragic protagonist to irredeemable villain. Like Jack Torrance in this part, I think, has become the villain. The Overlook is the major villain. To continue with the Star Wars analogies here, the Overlook is Palpatine. Jack Torrance has now become Darth Vader, for equivalency.
I think there's a grain of truth there. It's like he's become fascinated with the Overlook. He's become and the mysteries of the Overlook and it's not exactly like he's going to gain magical powers from the Overlook. That's not what he's trying to get. But if the book does pull, and again, his pitch for the book, even though it was pitched to the totally wrong audience and was done again in the service of petty ends, it actually is a pretty good pitch.
Sure.
It's anyway, but the point is, like, he is like that's the same. It's the same thing. Is he's now seeking power, in this case in the literary world, from developing a writing and releasing this book, and he thinks is going to give him like all this acclaim and stuff. It's just, I don't know. I think it is actually a very good analogy that you've come up with here.
It was totally planned, 100%. Totally. But yeah, it's just, Jack's complete disregard for the situation that he has placed them in is just, it's irresponsible, it's insanely selfish, and just baffling. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, he like I've said before already now, he knows what he's doing, he knows what's happening, he knows the truth of it, and he's had a couple of moments where he understands the severity of it, but then he just, it's okay to actually use a book metaphor here. He's talking about how, like, his life has been like a wasp's nest and his hands always, this is like, there's like a wasp's nest sitting there, and he's like, man, if I stick my hand in that, it's gonna sting a lot. And, oh no, I'm suddenly allergic to wasps, I've just now realized. So if I stick my hand in there, I'm going to have an allergic reaction. And boy, things aren't going to be as very good. I should not stick my hand in the wasp's nest. That would be a terrible idea, to stick my hand in the wasp's nest. And he's like, yeah. Sticking my face in the wasp's nest, however, and then proceeds to go head first into it. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Just unreal. Fantastic writing. This is just extremely fantastic Stephen King writing, but just what a despicable character.
So later, after they've talked about it, and after Danny's gone, he's he's talking to Wendy is talking to him, and she, in a very bizarre turn, apologizes to Jack. Again, this is, it's just she herself has now become a victim of abuse, much like Jack's mother. But she says that, but she still holds her ground that Jack should not have hit Danny, and that was never going, promised that he would never hit Danny again, and all of that. And Jack, he's just like I said, he's having his like kind of probably final moment of clarity. He's like, yeah, I guess you're right, And then he's like, and then she's like, when the ranger comes, they all need to leave. And Jack's like, yeah, that would be for the best. And there's a part of him that he's waiting for this part of the conversation for her to ask about what did Danny mean when he said, I'm telling the truth. And he realized, and he's just like, he's almost mentally begging her to ask him this. And because in his mind, he's like, if she asks me, I'm going to just tell her about all of these things. And but she doesn't. She asks if he wants a cup of tea, and he says yes. And that's kind of like the last moment. Obviously, I don't think that he could have had a realistically come back from this kind of thing, but at least as a father, at least as a part of the Torrance family, as shown in this book, I don't think there's any coming back from what he's done. But maybe it could have been like the beginning of, like, I don't know, maybe not like totally descending into being just total garbage, but he misses that last sort of out, and it is tragic in a way. Not that you feel extraordinarily bad for Jack at the moment, because he's like we've said, he's totally surrendered himself to not just the malign influence of the hotel, but of his own sort of darkness within him. But there is this moment that you just, it feels like seeing a little flame in a dark room, in like the smallest little candle you can imagine, just get snuffed out. Just this last potential moment to reclaim any sort of part of his soul, and it's just very sad.
Yeah, like I said, face first into the wasp nest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I don't think there was... I think he was past the point of saving, because I think even if he would have told her everything, that would have just... What would that have changed, honestly? That would have made Wendy even more frightened. She would have been frantically trying to find a way for them to get off. She'd be even more frantically trying to find a way to get them off of the mountain, and unless he just miraculously found the magneto, or whatever it's called, and it was able to be still fixed, that that would be what it would have to come down to. And I think the odds of that happening are really low at this point, because the Overlook...
No, it doesn't change anything, but it's like the last like bit of like his ability to be self-reflective before that's before he totally just surrenders himself to his worst impulses. I think that's what I'm saying is, like, no, but like the relationship with his wife is for all intents and purposes destroyed, and she is now like just his subordinated victim in some way. And he's destroyed his relationship with Danny, because Danny now knows that he cannot trust his father, and that his father is trying to make him feel crazy. He's not trying to protect him anymore.
Yeah.
So so the family has essentially been destroyed by Jack's actions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like any chance of Jack to not just become a total monster. I don't know. I don't know quite how to put it, but it feels like it was a very significant moment in Jack. It was just like the devolution of his character. It's like there realistically nothing material could have come up with that, but it felt like the final snuffing of the candle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So we have one of the knights now. They're all awoken, by what sounds like some sort of mechanical mechanism going, and they learn that it's the elevator. And they all go up to investigate together, and they see that the elevator is going up and down and up and down and up and down, and Jack's like, it's just short circuiting. But meanwhile, Danny and Wendy they're getting like thoughts in their head, kind of like how it's been going throughout the book, how the characters will sometimes have intrusive thoughts and they're like, oh, that was weird. But for Danny and Wendy, it's the sounds of the party goers from the party that has been mentioned multiple times in the book at this point. The party where it's like it's a masquerade ball, and at midnight, unmask, 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 and they're getting these thoughts of what is probably the party goers as they're going up and down the elevator as it's approaching midnight. And Wendy's like, what is happening? Like, I'm getting these thoughts, and Jack just, being part 4 Jack Torrance is like, I don't hear a thing. If you two want to be crazy, you do it without me. Idiots. And it's just insulting. And it's so frustrating. Because I feel like he's hearing it too. He's just trying to exude all of this denial, because I guess he feels like if he says no, if he says these things aren't happening, then that's gonna make them think that they aren't happening too. Maybe, I don't know. He's just in a lot of denial. But he stops the elevator, and it's like halfway to the floor, so they can kind of like see into it a little bit, and then there's just the big gap on the floor that's going to lead down to the elevator shaft. And he's like, yeah, it's nothing to see here. And Wendy's like, you kidding me? And she like hops up and starts climbing into the elevator, and one of her slippers falls down the shaft, and she starts throwing confetti out of the elevator. And like she throws a banner, and she comes out holding a mask, and she's like, how is this okay? How is this normal? Like, what about this is nothing? This isn't nothing, Jack. And he's just kind of like blah, 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 like just like speechless about it. But yeah, I mean, if we've had like 4 or 5 smoking guns at this point, and I feel like this one is just this gun's on fire. There's no denying this.
The barrel has melted on this gun.
Yeah. Like, this is just like, now Wendy is in on it full force. Like, she has irrefutable, something weird is happening here. She believes Danny, but like, she's never actually been, as far as she's aware, a victim of the hotel yet. She has kind of, but not in a way that she like recognizes. But this is like something that she can concretely say something's not right here. So I think this is a really big switch for Wendy as well, to where she goes from just being the supporting understander to like full on believer. Maybe not full on believer, but I think she started to make that turn.
Yeah.
Cool scene though. Really, really fun chapter. And so now we move on to the final piece here in this part, and it's Danny is in the ballroom, and he's playing with this massive, I don't know if it's a grandfather clock or not. It doesn't really go into details about it so much outside of its general appearance. So he's playing with it, and just kind of messing around with it, and he brings it over to noon or midnight to 12 o'clock, and it does this little chime where these 2 dancers come out, and oh man, this is probably one of my favorite lines in the book so far. So they do this little thing where they kind of dance around together, and then they like the boy dancer grabs the girl dancer, and it's like they kind of like flip her around and lay down, and as Danny says it, they're kissing pee-pees, and it makes him sick.
Very, very strange clock there.
Yeah, which I'm honestly of 2 minds of this. Like, I think this could be the hotel just messing with him, or it could actually be just that's how the clock is. And I could totally believe, knowing what I know about the history of the Overlook, that somebody along the line of ownership just thought it would be funny to have that there. just some 69ing dolls on a clock. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the hotel was a brothel not terribly long before this, or maybe not. Well, it was like 20 years before, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like so I imagine that kind of like body furniture was probably part of it.
Yeah. So now, after seeing that grotesque display in Danny's eyes, he's like trying to reach Tony because he realizes that he hasn't really had an interaction with Tony since the doctor's office, and he's like trying and trying and trying. And he doesn't feel like anything's working, but then the clock starts to change, and this is done in such a great way. I feel to where he's talking about how the clock is now moving from the XII. He can't read Roman numerals. The XII to the, it was either the IV or the VI. I can't remember which one it was. 4 or 6. I'm not sure. But the point being is the clock has been distorted to where the numbers are now out of order. And I feel like that's kind of one of those things to where it's like it's a subtle little thing that King did in the writing to where it's like you may not actually realize what is happening until it's happening. Until it's like happening full on.
The way I'm understanding it is it's kind of like bouncing back and forth. It's like the masquerade ball in 1945, and also is like during the attack, the assassination that took place in the presidential suite in the 60s.
Yeah. So the clock opens up completely, the face of it, and it sucks Danny in, at least metaphysically. His body just goes limp on the chair that he's standing on, and he goes and he sees Tony again, and well, not yet. He doesn't see Tony again, but he starts seeing on the clock. He sees red rum, and it becomes reflected. And here we go. We finally get the payoff of red rum here. Red rum is a mirror reverse image of murder. Da da da. Red rum is murder. I can't believe it. But then he remembers, he sees he's back in the hallway being chased by the person with the rope bat, and he sees another person there, and it turns out to be Dick Halloran. And Dick's like, hey, if you need me, just shout out. Just reminding him about the thing he told him. Hey, just shout as loud as you can with your shine, and I'll come a-running. And he walks through the wall, and then the figure finds Danny finally, and all he can see are its eyes. And he falls through the wall after Dick, and that's when he sees Tony. And Tony's like, call out to Dick, call out to Dick. And then Tony wakes up. Danny wakes up, rather, and just does the largest mental shout that he's ever done, calling out for Dick Halloran. And that's where the part ends.
That was quite a cliffhanger there.
Yep. Not quite the same as the one in part 3, but still a good one. Now we're setting up for the finale. Yeah,
and I for one am very excited that our boy Dick Halloran will be making a reappearance, or at least we are hoping that he will in this time. He's a great character.
I did a little sneak peek, and I saw that the next chapter is called Florida. So
okay, well, I think it's fair to say that he's coming back then.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be starting with Dick Halloran in the next chapter to start out part 5, the final part of The Shining. And I think that's going to do it for us today.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited. This next part is probably going to be one of our longer reading portions, but I'm still very excited nevertheless.
Yeah, this is such a great book. I'm really enjoying it. I'm having so much fun reading it. It's just so masterfully written, and it's I don't know, man. Stephen King, man, he is just something else.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what's next, and honestly, it's making me really want to read Dr. Sleep as well.
Yeah, that definitely has always been in the back of my mind as like a read it eventually, but it was always after The Shining.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that's it for today. Thank you everybody for listening. Once again, this is the Sad Boys Book Club, and I am Daniel.
I'm Dusty.
And we'll see you next time.
Take care.